everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. 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 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. Oh, there's something about your love. Something about your love changes everything in my body. Oh, something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. 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 Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything.
Good morning, Rooted Men, and happy and blessed Thursday morning. Pastor Tom, Firmly Rooted Church. Welcome to the Firmly Rooted Men, as well as the Freedom Men and any other men that might be watching this online. We are looking at 2 Corinthians chapter 11. Paul's going to get real. This is always a tough section for me to read, and I'll maybe explain some of that in a little bit. But let's say hi to a few people, and we're going to move forward. Steve Giroux, good morning. Ken Gooch, good morning. Fellow brothers in arms. Bert Reggiani, good morning. Chuck, shalom, gentlemen. Austin Jackson, good morning, Pastor T and Rooted Men. And well, we got some more out there. Maybe they'll chime in here after the devotion. Let me pull it up. We're going to look at Second Corinthians chapter 11, and we're going to begin at verse 16. Excuse me. Kind of a weird title, right? Paul's suffering as an apostle. You know, one of the things I think he's trying to say to the Corinthian church, I'll tell you right up front, is how come these false teachers that are following me around and preaching a different gospel, how come they're not stoned? How come they're not shipwrecked? How come they don't have to sacrifice? How come they get paid? How come? And it's easy when we're on this side of things to say, man, that's unfair. But if you understand the two kingdoms, and Paul does, he realizes the reason they don't suffer is because there's no threat. The enemy wants to make them feel secure because, man, they're preaching a false gospel. That's what I want. Satan wants that false gospel to be spread. So why would I have them persecuted? Paul clearly realizes that life for the true believer is not easy because this world's going to come down on them. The devil is going to attack. And hence, we've got to put on that full armor. We have got to be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. We have to learn how to do this. But let's get to the reading. I repeat, let no one think me foolish. But even if you do, accept me as a fool, so that I too may boast a little. What I'm saying with this boastful confidence, I say not as the Lord would, but as a fool. Since my boast according to the flesh, I too will boast. What's he saying? If I turn the logic around, I've got a reason to boast. I can look at all these churches that I started. I can look at all these apostles and all these disciples that I created. I can look at all of these things. He says, for you, gladly bear with fools, being wise yourselves. You guys are relying on fools. When you heard the pure truth from me, you see, because in verse 20, you bear it if someone makes slaves of you or devours you and takes advantage of you and puts on airs or strikes you in the face. You're allowing these false teachers to delude your thinking. You're allowing them to enslave you. You're allowing them to water down the gospel. You're allowing them to do all of these things because they have the air of protection. They have the air of confidence. They have these things. To my shame, I must say, we were too weak for that. Maybe we came too humbly to you. See, we tried to come to you like Jesus, humble, lowly, not wanting anything, but wanting to give everything we had. To not want you to put us on a pedestal, but for you to put Jesus on a pedestal, even if we had to sacrifice. But whatever anyone else dares to boast of, I'm speaking as a fool, I also dare to boast. Are they Hebrews? Are those false teachers Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they offspring of Abraham? So am I. Are they servants of Christ? Notice the word, servants. Are they servants of Christ? Are they lowly? Or are they coming across authoritative? Like somehow they've got some truth. Are they servants of Christ? I am a better one. I'm talking like a man. With far greater labors, far more imprisonments, with countless beatings, and often near death. 5 times I received at the hands of the Jews the 40 lashes less one. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. At night and day I was adrift at the sea, on frequent journeys, in danger from rivers, and dangers from robbers, and dangers from my own people, dangers from Gentiles, dangers in the city, dangers in the wilderness, dangers in the sea, dangers from false prophets, in toil and hardship, through many sleepless nights, in hunger and thirst, often without food, in cold and exposure. And I'll leave the rest of that reading to Matt. Why does he go through this list? 1, because he needed to. You see, we pastors also have to take every thought captive. We have to learn to slow our minds down, to call lies lies and truths truths. We wonder sometimes, how come that guy's so successful? How come that guy? Why do I seem to be having the short end of the stick? Why do I seem to face all the trials and tribulations? What about that guy? Why am I not like that guy? What Paul understands is that whole list, he's not bragging. What he's saying is, it proves that I'm like Christ, because he suffered ridicule. He suffered people disbelieving him. He suffered people wanting to kill him. He suffered. Woe to the preacher out there that's not facing trials and tribulations. Woe to the preacher out there that's not being accused of being too harsh or being too this or that. Woe to the preacher who preaches rainbows and balloons and drives his Mercedes-Benz and says, look how the Lord's blessing me. Are you sure it's the Lord? The prophet Ananias that prayed for Paul after his conversion so that the scales would fall off his eyes. God said to him, I will show him how much he must suffer for my name's sake. How would you like that on the epitaph of your tomb? I will show you how much you're going to suffer for my name's sake, because you believe in me. Because you believe in me. Wait a minute. I want everything to go great. I want my house to sell. I want all these things to happen. I don't want to have harm. I don't want my wife to die. I don't want these things to take place. What in the world's going on? All of a sudden, you got to take your thoughts captive, and you got to take your head and mind and slow it down. And you got to remind yourself what truth is, and remind yourself that this life is a vale of tears. We try to make it look better than it is. We don't live for this world. We don't live for this kingdom. It doesn't have anything to give us, but the one who gives all things promises that we're going to have, he's going to make all things new, that we're going to be a place where there's no more suffering, no more pain, no more sorrow, that we're going to be a place in eternity with him that was like the Garden of Eden. He's trying to replace the Garden of Eden. Watch out for the false teachers and the false prophets. You'll know them by their fruit. All right. I think I'll leave it at that. Steve Ponoworski, good morning. Austin, so good. Steve Drew, amen. Amen, guys. Amen. Much to learn here. All right. We'll leave it at that. I'll be back in just a bit. Blessings on your day. Make it a firmly rooted day, and may someone see Jesus in us today. Peace.